Hi, I'm Mariah Busher, and I'm here to talk to you about three books that represent diverse characters and from a diverse group of authors. And they're all middle grade novels, so they're best for ages 8 to 12, but really anyone of any age could enjoy having these stories read to them or reading them. So, the first book I want to talk about is The Turtle of Oman by Naomi Shihab Nye. She is an American woman, but her father and her family from that side are from Palestine. So she often features the Middle East in her books, and this is no exception. This book takes place in Oman, and that is a country in the Middle East near Saudi Arabia. The book is about a boy named Aref, whose family is about to move to Michigan, but he's very unhappy about it. So what does he do? He procrastinates and fails to pack until the very last minute because he wants to spend time with his grandfather, Sidi. So he and Sidi go around to Aref's favorite places. They visit the beach where the sea turtles hatch every year, and they camp out in the desert and have just a grand old time. And there's one little passage I want to read that's very beautiful and poetic. It's said by Sidi. Oh, I see some beautiful planets that I haven't seen since before we had lights. We slept on the roof all summer long when I was a boy, and the Milky Way poured its stories down on our heads and into our dreams. The book is very fun, takes you to a part of the world that we don't often see much of, especially not in a favorable light. So I really recommend this one. The next book is called The Firefly Letters, A Suffragette's Journey to Cuba by Margarita Engel. This author is a Cuban-American woman. Her family came partially from Cuba. She grew up here in the United States. And this is a book in verse. As you can see, it's in poetry, but it's very easy to read. It flows very well. It's not intimidating at all. But the book is about Frederica Bremer, who visited Cuba in the 1800s for several months. And it's her story, and it's also the story of her interpreter, Cecilia, who was a character from Bremer's life. She was a slave woman, unfortunately, which was common in Cuba. But another character in the book is called Elena, who is a girl from a wealthy family, but in a way she is sort of a slave as well. Frederica had fought against that same type of slavery, being unable to do what she wanted and say what she wanted and marry whom she wanted. And she managed to break away, but this book is about her trip to Cuba and how she sees the beauty of this wonderful island, but also the sadness and the horror of being a slave next to all of that. And a nice passage to read from it to give you an idea of how well the words flow from Frederica's point of view. Cuban fireflies are the most amazing little creatures I have ever seen. They flock to me at night, resting on my fingers, so that while I am sketching and writing letters, I need no other lantern, just the light of their movements. It's a sweet little book, and it really makes you think, but it lets you have fun along the way, which is a plus in any book. So the final book I want to talk about is called Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. This is a marvelous book. It has been praised, and so I won't go into too much of that, but it's very well known, even though it's only a few years old. And this is another book that is in verse, as you can see, but this is a memoir, really, more than a novel. It talks a lot about Woodson's life. Growing up in the 1960s and 1970s, she lived in Ohio, South Carolina, and New York. So she saw a whole gambit of different types of inequality, from Jim Crow to separated bathrooms and water fountains and things like that, as well as she saw the end of that era as the civil rights movement took hold and really started to change things. So she talks a lot about all that stuff in this book, as well as finding her voice as a writer. And part of how she did that was by reading and admiring other African American authors. And one of those that she especially invokes a lot in the book is Langston Hughes. She writes a poem in here called Rivers that is very reminiscent of Langston Hughes' poem about rivers. And hers goes, "The Hocking River moves like a flowing arm away from the Ohio River, runs through towns as though it's chasing its own freedom, the same way the Ohio runs north from Virginia until it's safely away from the South." She talks about the Ohio River and the Hocking River the same way Langston Hughes talked about the rivers of Africa, which he considered his heritage, and these are the ones she considers her own, which is kind of nice. I could connect with that because I live very close to the Ohio River. That was fun for me to read. And then another one I want to read from this book really shows off the narrative a little bit more. It talks about the Civil Rights March. "Because we have a right, my grandfather tells us. We are sitting at his feet, and the story tonight is why people are marching all over the South. To walk and sit and dream wherever we want. First they brought us here. Then we worked for free. Then it was 1863, and we were supposed to be free, but we weren't. And that's why people are so mad." This is a very interesting book. It's very thoughtful. And especially if you're interested in writing, this is a very interesting book to maybe get an idea of how she was inspired later in life by her childhood and all the things that she saw then. So I hope you enjoyed these books. They take you all around the world, from the United States and all over the United States to Cuba and all the way to the Middle East in Oman.